I used to believe love had a sound. Not the loud kind, not the kind people shout about in poems or cry over in public places. Love, to me, sounded like breathing. It sounded like the soft pause between his words when he wasn't sure how to say what he felt. It sounded like the way he said my name when he thought I was asleep. It sounded like the quiet rustle of sheets at dawn when the world hadn't yet remembered how cruel it could be. My name is Elara, and before everything broke, I was loved. Deeply, tenderly. The kind of love that makes you forget who you were before it arrived. I remember the first night like it happened yesterday. The city was humming outside, low, distant, alive. We were on the balcony of his apartment, wrapped in the kind of silence that doesn't feel empty. He handed me a glass of wine, our fingers touching just enough to linger. I remember how he didn't pull away immediately, like he wanted to memorize the feeling. "You always look like you're thinking about something sad," he said softly. I smiled. "Maybe I'm just remembering things before they disappear." He laughed gently, then stopped himself. "I don't want to be something you remember. I want to be something you stay with." I didn't know it then, but that sentence would come back to haunt me. Back then, love felt endless. We made rituals out of ordinary things. Sunday mornings were for slow music and bare feet on cold floors. He'd make coffee the wrong way, always too strong, and I'd tease him until he kissed me quiet. He liked tracing patterns on my back when we talked, said it helped him listen better. At night, I'd rest my head on his chest and listen to his heartbeat, steady and sure. I used to think, this is what safety sounds like. He told me stories about his childhood, about dreams he never said out loud to anyone else, about fears he pretended not to have, and I told him mine, every secret, every crack, every scar. That's the thing about deep romance. It doesn't rush. It undresses the soul slowly. He used to call me his calm. I used to call him my home. And when he said he loved me for the first time, it wasn't dramatic. He didn't kneel or raise his voice or wait for the perfect moment. He just said it one night while brushing my hair back from my face. "I love you," he whispered, like it was something sacred. I didn't answer immediately, not because I didn't feel it, but because I felt it too much. I loved him in the way that makes you reckless. I loved him in the way that makes you believe people won't hurt you if you love them enough. Months passed, then years. We built a small world together. Private jokes, shared looks across crowded rooms, silent conversations only we understood. When people looked at us, they smiled. They said we were lucky. And then there was her, my best friend. She had been in my life before him, before the love, before the dreams. She knew my past, my weaknesses, my fears. She knew how deeply I loved him, how I trusted him with parts of me I had never given anyone else. She used to sit on our couch, laughing, drinking wine, telling stories. She used to hug me tightly and say, "You deserve this happiness." I believed her. That's the cruelty of betrayal. It never announces itself. It arrives disguised as comfort. At first, nothing felt wrong, just small shifts. A pause before he answered certain questions, her laughter lingering a little too long after his jokes, the way conversations stopped when I entered the room. I told myself I was imagining things. Love makes you generous with excuses. I still remember the night everything inside me went quiet. I came home earlier than expected. No warning, no message. I was excited. I had bought something small, something silly, just to see him smile. The apartment was dim, quiet. And then I heard her voice. Soft, familiar, too close. I stood there, heart pounding, listening to the sound of a world collapsing in whispers. I didn't walk in. I didn't scream. I didn't confront them. I left. Sometimes the deepest wounds are the ones you don't bleed from immediately. That night, I lay awake alone, staring at the ceiling, replaying every memory like it was evidence in a trial I never agreed to be part of. The kisses, the promises, the secrets. I felt something new growing inside me. Not anger yet, not hatred. something colder, something patient. I didn't know it then, but that was the moment my love changed shape. Romance doesn't die instantly, it rots first, and when it does, it becomes something else entirely. Something dangerous. York, feeling the rain soak through my coat, feeling the world continue around me as if I didn't exist. And yet, every neon reflection, every shadow on wet asphalt whispered his face, her laugh, the stolen warmth of what was mine. Obsession doesn't arrive politely. It doesn't knock. It creeps in when you least expect it. And once it finds you, it burrows deep, reshaping your thoughts, twisting memories until even the love you once cherished becomes a weapon. I remembered our first stolen weekend in Paris. The rain had drenched the cobblestones, our fingers intertwined as we ran through alleys laughing like fools. I remembered the way he kissed me under the Eiffel Tower, how he whispered, "No one in the world knows me like you do." I replayed it again and again, not to remember the joy, but to see where the cracks had been, to trace the moments before everything turned. Every thought I had became a puzzle. Every glance at a photograph or message felt like evidence in a crime I had yet to commit. I watched him, not physically, but in my mind. The way he carried himself in London, across glass-walled boardrooms, the casual charm that made everyone else blind to the claws beneath. And her. She followed him like a shadow, laughing at jokes only he found funny, moving closer with each passing week. I didn't reach out. I didn't scream. I let the silence grow, let the obsession fester, let it teach me how to see them clearly. But obsession is a dangerous thing. It makes you notice details no one else does. The subtle tremor in his hand when she said something too intimate. The tiny curl of her lip when she thought I wasn't watching. The pattern of their days, from Tokyo's neon-lit evenings to Sydney's foggy dockyards, from New York penthouses to Edinburgh streets, all mapped out. I could follow them in my mind like a city I knew better than my own apartment. Forbidden desire crept in next. I hated him. I hated her. And yet, I longed for the warmth we had shared, that dangerous ache. I remembered the softness of his lips on my neck, the way he smelled in the morning sunlight spilling through our apartment in Los Angeles, the lazy kisses by the Seine in Paris, the whispered promises in a London flat I thought was ours. Desire became a blade I twisted in my own heart. I started testing myself. I allowed small fantasies, imagining him alone in a room with her, imagining how I would strike without warning. I imagined walking into a gala in Sydney and seeing him frozen with shock when he recognized me or didn't. The fantasies blurred the line between love and revenge until they were inseparable. I moved through the days like a ghost, learning manipulation slowly, carefully. I called old friends, not for comfort, but to extract secrets. I watched his routines, noting when he traveled, from New York to Los Angeles, then London to Edinburgh, Paris, Tokyo, Melbourne, and how predictable he thought he was. Chaos was building inside me quietly, carefully, waiting for the perfect moment. I began testing reactions, sending cryptic messages, leaving traces of my presence in places only he would notice. A scarf folded just so in a Tokyo boutique he frequented, a drink left on the balcony of our old Sydney apartment, a note tucked into a book he was reading in a Parisian cafe. Every subtle act was a reminder. I had survived. I had remembered. I had changed. And yet, the chaos wasn't only for him, it was for me. For the first time since the betrayal, I felt alive. Every heartbeat, every pang of desire, every shiver of jealousy, it was power. I understood now why love and revenge are so often married. One teaches you what it is to feel, the other teaches you what it is to act. I began mapping the edges of his life, who he trusted in New York, the people he laughed with in London, the contacts he used in Los Angeles and Sydney, the patterns that could be exploited, the weaknesses no one would notice. I wasn't just angry, I was methodical, beautiful in my patience, terrifying in my precision. Forbidden desire crept into my planning. I imagined moments where I could confront him, not with screams, not with tears, but with the quiet perfection of a calculated reveal. I imagined walking into a ballroom in Paris, candlelight reflecting on crystal chandeliers, him turning, recognizing me after months, confusion and dread in his eyes. I imagined the thrill of watching him squirm without knowing if I would strike that night or wait. The chaos of my mind was now mirrored in the world around me. Friends became tools, contacts became shadows in my network. Even strangers, people I didn't know, were whispers that could be shaped into opportunity. Every location became a chessboard, every person a potential piece. And through it all, the romance of the past lingered, haunting me. Every tender memory, every laugh, every touch became both a weapon and a wound. The sweetness of it made the bitterness sharper. The warmth of it made the cold precision of revenge taste richer. I realized then something. Revenge is not a sudden act. It doesn't explode. It seduces you first. It teaches you patience. It makes you ache. And when it finally arrives, it is unforgettable. I closed my eyes and imagined him alone in a cafe in Tokyo, waiting for a meeting, unaware of the storm gathering across oceans and continents, from New York to London, Sydney to Paris, Los Angeles to Edinburgh. The chaos, the fear, the realization that I was no longer the woman he thought he left behind. I smiled. The obsession, the forbidden desire, the manipulation, it had taught me one lesson. I was no longer hers to betray. I was mine, and soon the world would remember it too. Chaos was no longer outside me. Chaos was inside me, and like love, it had a sound. But this sound, it was sharp, measured, and terrifying. And the storm, it was only beginning. Patient, seductive, and absolute, it moves quietly, invisibly, until one day it strikes with the weight of everything you lost. I had learned the rules, the patterns, the mistakes they made, the arrogance they believed shielded them. Victor Hale, the man who thought the world bowed to him in New York boardrooms, London penthouses, and Paris galas, had no idea I was already inside his empire. I started small, nothing that would draw attention. A misfiled document in Sydney's corporate tower, a carefully leaked rumor in Melbourne's elite circles, the subtle hint that someone was watching him, always watching. He felt it, of course, but never knew it was me, never guessed that the woman he and my best friend had dismissed was already weaving chaos in their world. And then I remembered him, the man I once loved, the one whose laughter had once lit my mornings in Los Angeles, whose whispered promises in Tokyo cafes had made me believe in forever. That man had no idea the fire he lit in me had transformed into something unrecognizable. Sweet love had turned into sharp, precise, and terrifying obsession. I let desire guide the storm. I watched from shadows, appearing in places he didn't expect: a charity gala in London, a board meeting in New York, a rooftop in Paris where the city lights seemed to hide my presence. My presence. The thought alone made him pause sometimes, though he didn't yet realize the source. Then the first chaos struck. At a high-profile dinner in Sydney, I saw him laughing with my best friend, the same one who had stolen everything. She leaned into him too casually, whispered something I didn't hear, and I smiled, slowly, quietly. I didn't move, I didn't speak. I just let them exist in the same space, unaware that I had already begun turning the rules against them. Every tiny sabotage, every hidden observation became a weapon. I learned the patterns of his security, the rhythms of his entourage, the people he trusted most in Paris, Tokyo, Melbourne, Edinburgh, Los Angeles. I became a ghost in their world, invisible, precise, chaotic. And then the chaos escalated. An unexpected meeting in New York, a minor investor misdirected, a contract subtly altered, the smallest of changes, the tiniest ripple, and it spread. Their empire, so meticulously built, started to wobble under invisible hands, and all the while he still thought the world was safe. I allowed myself one final indulgence in memory, the way he had once held me, so gentle in the glow of Parisian streetlights, our fingers intertwined on the Seine. That memory became my armor, my inspiration. I remembered the laughter we shared in the Los Angeles hills, the quiet mornings in London, the whispered secrets in Tokyo's back alleys. Every memory sharpened the edge of my revenge. Every fantasy became fuel for the storm I would unleash. Then came the night everything changed. A gala in Paris, the most public stage imaginable. I entered unseen, flawless, my dress dark as midnight, eyes trained on him. He laughed across the ballroom with my former best friend, unaware I had orchestrated the night. The lights, the cameras, the schedules, all chaos I had manipulated silently over months. I let desire and revenge mingle. I allowed him to see just a hint of me in the crowd, a glance he couldn't place, a familiarity that tugged at his subconscious. He turned, and his heart stumbled. The storm erupted in whispers, in subtle exposures. Documents appeared in the wrong hands, contracts collapsed, allies became enemies, all carefully choreographed. I watched, satisfied, as his confidence faltered in New York, in Sydney, in Tokyo, across continents he believed he controlled. And then I approached him, not with a scream, not with accusation, not with rage. I smiled softly, the same smile he had once adored, and I whispered words he would never forget. You thought love would keep me. You thought I would break. You thought you were untouchable. Chaos hit. His empire shuddered. His friends, his colleagues, his former confidants. Suddenly he was isolated, vulnerable, exposed, and all because he had underestimated the woman he believed powerless. I stood there, watching, feeling the surge of triumph mingle with forbidden longing. A love that had once bound me to him had become the edge of my vengeance, and for the first time I realized I didn't need him to beg for forgiveness. I didn't need him to suffer in private. I simply needed him to see, to feel, to recognize that the calm, gentle woman he had discarded was the storm he could not survive. And then, finally, I left, not with screams, not with tears, not with rage. I left with elegance, with precision, with a quiet smile of someone who knew the chaos they had orchestrated was irreversible. Across London, New York, Paris, Tokyo, Sydney, and Los Angeles, my story became a whisper, a legend, a ghost, a woman who loved deeply, suffered profoundly, and had risen, finally, beautifully, above betrayal. Love had been the spark, obsession had been the fuel, and revenge had been the storm unleashed. They would never see it coming again, because when chaos is crafted by the one you betrayed, it is unstoppable, unforgettable, and exquisitely beautiful.